Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the show. My name is Matt Morris. We are live right now on Rumble as well as on YouTube at Matt Morris TV. Folks, we are going live with today's broadcast a little bit early, about 1 hour early. And the reason why, of course, is because today we are going to be watching a White House press secretary conference featuring White House press secretary Carolyn Leavitt, which is scheduled to begin right around 8 minutes from now. Top of the hour, 1 p.m. Eastern. Now, that is not all we are doing today. I want to get this out of the way. I want to say this bright and early. Ladies and gentlemen, after Carolyn Leavitt is done with this White House press conference, where they're going to be breaking down all the news in the country and the world, we also have a lot to talk about. There's going to be a little bit of an after show, if you can even call it that. We have massive news today pertaining to 2020 election fraud, 2020 election interference. It seems as if President Trump is on the cusp of exposing all of it. No, I'm not kidding. Trump has been posting some very curious posts on Truth Social over the last 12 hours. We are going to break all of it down. And word on the block is that all of this 2020 election fraud stuff is actually going to get exposed in 6 days. What happens in 6 days? Well, it is the State of the Union address. And personally, I can't think of a better place, of a better time, of a better venue than the State of the Union address to expose all the 2020 election fraud. So we have a lot to talk about insofar as that goes today. Also, ladies and gentlemen, there was another massive story that we are going to break down together here on today's live broadcast after the White House press conference. And that story is what is currently going on in Iran. The Iranian situation has just become increasingly complex after negotiations seem to have fallen through yesterday at Geneva in Switzerland. A U.S. team of delegates met with an Iranian team of delegates yesterday afternoon, and it seems like all bets are off. Now, shortly after that meeting kind of imploded over the night, really over the last 12 to 18 hours, we have now been witnessing massive military movements. Planes and jets and boats and troops are surging across the Atlantic from the U.S., dropping down through Europe into the Middle East. And so we are going to break down the entire Middle Eastern situation, Iranian situation. How did we get here? Where are we now? Where is it going? When might this powder keg go off? I have perhaps a 20-minute long monologue to give you guys relating to Iran, breaking every single thing down. But we're going to hold off on that until after the White House press conference here has concluded, because like I said, it is set to kick off in 5 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a big show. It's going to be one heck of a show. It's a super show. I go live and I always say breaking news, and people say, oh, there's no news. It's not breaking. Matt Morris's clickbait. Listen, when are you guys going to learn? I see some of you guys in the live chat. Am I clickbaiting you guys? Do I go live with you guys and then just have nothing to talk about? No, we are bringing it every single day, every single broadcast. You guys would not believe, before I go live for these broadcasts, I spend 4 or 5 hours getting ready, getting all my notes ready, going through the motions, researching. Listen, clickbait. I saw that today. I'm getting ready to go live and somebody said, Matt, there's nothing breaking news. It's clickbait. Matt Morris. Listen, hey, how many of these shows do I have to deliver before some of you guys learn? There's no clickbait. We are bringing the news in a way that nobody else is bringing it. Okay. So, hey, thank you very much for attending today's broadcast. Make sure to hit that like button and make sure to subscribe and follow. Now, like I said, Carolyn Leavitt, she is scheduled to come on out here in 4 minutes now. However, sometimes Mrs. Leavitt, she is a little bit late sometimes. So I've prepared some other things we can talk about while we wait. Don't worry, we're not going to miss anything. You are in the right place today. Thank you all for being here. But we have some other news to go through while we're sitting on standby. Take a look at this. Breaking news this morning. It's official. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon just earlier today argued in front of the Supreme Court that election day means one election day, not election overnight party. We're not going to be counting votes until 2 or 3 in the morning on the following day. It's not election week. Election day, letter of the law, means one day. It is election day. That is one day, not weeks, not months of voting and counting. And we have seen the Democrats, we've seen the far left abuse. They've been counting votes for weeks. Listen, you got to get it all done in one day. This is Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon argued this in the Supreme Court, in front of the Supreme Court earlier this morning. Excuse me. Good. We need to go back to election day to secure our elections. Harmeet Dillon said, election day means election day. Proud to have co-authored this brief with our colleagues in the Solicitor General's office. If we can score this one, that would be a big deal. That would be a massive deal. We also got news. And by the way, don't worry, we're not going to miss anything here today. You are in the right place. Carolyn Levitt is coming on out very soon. Now, we also got news today. Breaking news, Susie Wiles, President Trump's chief of staff, and other top Trump team members just earlier today hosted a Capitol Hill midterm strategy session with nearly 100 power players, members of the Trump administration, donors, key political operatives, etc. And the number one issue for Republicans to focus on going into midterms is what? It is the economy. And I think that's a proper assessment. I think that makes sense. It's all about the economy, housing affordability, health insurance transparency data, lowering drug costs, tax cuts, banning stock trading for Congress. Hold up, wait a minute. I need to rub my eyes here. The Trump administration now wants to try to push to ban stock trading for congressional representatives. That's a big deal. That would be a big deal. That would be a massive deal. Can I, while we have a minute here, can I give you folks a little bit of a personal anecdote while we've got eyes inside of the White House press conference room? You guys know my personal background. I grew up in the Portland, Oregon area, literally in Portland, Oregon. I grew up surrounded by leftists, libtards, whatever you want to call them. All my friends, all my teachers, most of my family members from the Portland, Oregon area, they are radically progressive. Now, I've got this Facebook account. I've got a personal private Facebook page, and I've got about 900 friends on this Facebook page of mine. People I used to go to school with, former coworkers, whatever, teachers, university, high school, family, whatever, Okay, so it's about 900 people that I have added on my personal Facebook page. I opened up Facebook yesterday. I was taking a look at it, and I saw people on the left, people that I know. These are radical progressives. They said, wait a minute, I just filed my taxes, and I saved $2,000. I just got a free $2,000. What's going on here? And I'm seeing their replies. They're saying, yeah, it's because of Trump. Yeah, that's the one big, beautiful bill. And they said, no, it's not possible. What? You're telling me that I have another 2,000? I'm not making this up. I'm not lying about this. I couldn't believe it. I saw this last night. They said, wait a minute, I'm saving money because of Trump? His one big, beautiful bill? Man, I hate that guy. But man, I got to give him props. It's $2,000. I got to give him props, even though I hate him. And so I saw that. I had to crack a little smile. I couldn't believe it. So if you want to talk about winning midterms, okay, it is about the economy. You got to make people happy. It's true. You got to deliver results. And it seems like even people on the far left, people that I know in real life, they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't like Trump. I'm not happy about him, but he did put more money in my bank account. By the way, good morning, Decoy. Good morning, brother. Welcome to the show. Trump, the report goes on to say here, take a look at this. Trump is going to be running his own, quote, instincts-driven 2024 style blitz going into midterms, while everyone else is going to need to stay on message driven by the data. So this is like, everybody acknowledges Trump is going to do his thing. You can't control that. Trump is his own man. We all know how Trump is. He's going to do it his way. Everybody else in the administration, economy, stick to the message, economy. Make the American economy great again. We're doing it. We've already done it. That's the game plan. We also saw, as we head into midterms, how long do we have? What do we have, about 10 months? 9 months, probably about 9 months here. The Republicans, Trump, the RNC, they're going to be having a midterm convention. You know how every 4 years going into a general presidential election, we have a big convention, the DNC and the RNC. Well, for the first time ever, Trump and the Republicans, they're going to be having a midterm convention. Nobody's ever done it before. Kind of makes sense. I mean, yeah, it makes sense to do that. Nobody's ever done it. Trump said, well, why don't we have a convention? Why don't we get all the top Republicans, all the top conservatives in the country, get them together, put them up on stage like we always do every 4 years. Now we're going to do it this time and talk about how we are saving the republic, and they literally are, and how we're going to talk about how terrible the Democrats are. Okay, great. Seems good to me. So Trump and the Republicans, they are taking midterms seriously. You know who's not serious? Have you guys heard this news today? This is an individual, a Ugandan communist individual. He's the mayor of New York City. His name is Zoran Mamdani. Zoran Mamdani, the Ugandan communist. Well, as of earlier today, the far left is now turning on him. I kid you not, because he is talking about hiking property taxes in New York City to pay for all of his communist policies. Whoa, who could have predicted that? Who could have predicted that the communist Ugandan would raise taxes to pay for all of his communist free stuff? Well, he's pissing people off now. Take a listen to this.
For those who have watched budget after budget, it is tempting to assume that we are engaging in the same dance as our predecessors. Let me assure you, nothing about this is typical. That's why our solutions won't be either. There are two paths to bridge this gap. The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations.
Now, pause that. That first path, when he says raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers, talking property taxes, this is not a surprise. He campaigned on this. There was a campaign memo. It got posted publicly. Mamdani internally within his campaign was talking about raising taxes specifically on not rich New Yorkers, but on white New Yorkers. Remember that memo? Internally, the Mamdani campaign, they're saying, yeah, if they elect us, we're going to start bumping up taxes. We're going to raise taxes, not on just rich people. No, white people. They're going to have racially discriminatory taxes targeting white people. We saw that. That's a matter of fact.
The onus for resolving this crisis should not be placed on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers. If we do not fix this structural imbalance and do not heed the calls of New Yorkers to raise taxes on the wealthy, this crisis will not disappear. It will simply return, year after year, forcing harder and harsher choices each time. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes.
So he's going to raise property taxes. Now, Fox News conducted a report on this, adding a little bit of commentary here. Buyer's remorse is flooding into New York. Really, you know what's flooding is conservative, competently minded Americans living in New York are fleeing the city. White, Jewish, pretty much white and Jewish Americans living in New York. They're saying, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm not paying for this. Yeah, I'm not paying for this. I'm out of here. Really, it's mostly white people. White people are fleeing the city.
The city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes.
That's what he always wanted to do. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is applying heavy pressure on Governor Hochul in an election year after unveiling his $127 billion budget proposal, giving Albany an ultimatum. Either approve tax increases on the rich and the corporations, or Mamdani will raise property taxes by nearly 10%. Joining us out to explain this, what it means.
Raising property taxes by 10%. That's massive.
Those two paths is the co-host of the Big Money Show. She's got a big announcement at the end of this on Fox Business, Jackie DeAngelis.
Good morning.
Jackie, you said this is distressing.
Oh, very distressing. And what I noticed in that soundbite, you guys called it an ultimatum. I'd go as far to call it a threat. And I don't like to see elected officials threatening each other in this way. Hochul's worried about her reelection, and she knows that a tax hike in any way, shape, or form will not be received well by voters. So this isn't just about her winning. It's that people don't want it, and he doesn't get that message.
But he'll probably do it if she wins and Bruce Blakeman. She'll probably do it anyway, just like the whole congestion pricing thing, which she's sure she wouldn't do.
And it was debacle.
So let's break this down. Option number one, tax the wealthy. Raise the taxes already on corporations. We're already one of the most unattractive tax states in the country. Can only be approved by the state government. That's where Kathy Hochul comes in. But so does the legislature. And the Governor Hochul has insisted she isn't in favor of that, but she's already given a little bit on child care, too.
Yes. And what she's trying to do is the reasonable, sensible thing. But that's when he pivots and he says, OK, if you don't give me what I want, here's what I'm going to do. And this is what is distressing, because this ends up hurting the people, many of them, that he proposed that he would help with affordability, because these 3 million homes that are going to get hit with this real estate tax, these are not all millionaires. These are a lot of very normal people that will end up not being able to afford to live here. They will flee the city, and the problem gets worse.
There is something, if I remember, I believe it's called the Laffer curve. Does that sound right? Somebody fact check me on that. Anyway, what this says, this Laffer curve, I believe is the name for it. There's a certain amount of tax you can levy before it's no longer worth it. If you bump up taxes too high, if you try to tax people too much, then the people leave, or they start dodging taxes. They refuse to pay taxes. They move out of state. They move out of the city. I believe it's called the Laffer curve. And as far as I remember, that number is always around 20%. If you start going 40, 50, 60, 70% taxes, well, it's actually going to work against your interest, because people are just going to stop paying taxes. They're going to leave. They're going to dodge tax fraud, whatever. They're going to find some workaround. The point is, they're not going to pay them. And so that is what we're on the cusp of seeing here. This is one of these communist dilemmas. Well, we're just going to tax everybody 100% of everything, and it's going to be great, and everything's going to be free. It doesn't ever work. It has never worked. It does not work. I guess Mamdani wants to keep trying here. We're going to keep on bumping up taxes. You know what might help is not having, in New York City, hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of third world illegal aliens squatting under bridges, shoving 100 people into one apartment building or one apartment complex. That might help. That might alleviate some of the stress here, but no, it's a sanctuary city. I'll tell you something here. These 3 million homes that are now set to pay an increased property tax, should this go through, I would guess that most of these homeowners probably did not vote for Mamdani. Mamdani's electorate, who voted for Mamdani? It is the impoverished third world masses, many of whom are illegal aliens that have flooded into the city over the last couple of years, that have been flooding into the city. These 3 million homeowners, they're not going to put up with this. Perhaps not all of them are going to move, but a lot of them will. A lot of them will move. Coming out of New York City, we have seen a mass exodus from New York City down to Florida. Florida, in fact, right now is becoming the new financial capital of the world. All these big financiers, all these, they're effectively trying to move Wall Street down there. So in a lot of ways, because of this radically progressive, borderline communist leadership, New York is sort of losing relevance on the world stage. Everybody that's important is moving down to Florida or moving down to Texas. They're just rebuilding. They're saying, well, we got money. We're going to go elsewhere and we're going to rebuild. Whether it be in Dallas or Austin or Miami or whatever, they're packing up, they're leaving, they're restarting. I saw that Mark Zuckerberg, kind of on a tangential note here, Mark Zuckerberg for a long time had been in California, Silicon Valley area. Just in the last couple of weeks, he packed his bags. He moved to Florida also. He said, listen, taxes are too high. We can't conduct our business anymore. We saw Joe Rogan did the same thing. He used to be in California. He moved to Texas. We saw Elon Musk did the same thing. He was in California, Silicon Valley area. He moved to Texas, and also he's operating out of Florida also, I believe. And so people don't put up with this. It doesn't work. You can't just keep on sucking money out of people. At a certain point, they say, listen, we've had enough. In fact, as you guys know, that's kind of the the origin of our country. That's kind of the history of our country, is taxation without representation. You've got people saying, listen, I've got no say in how this far left radically progressive state is operating, but I'm being taxed to high hell. I'm out of here. In fact, now that I really think about this, that's kind of my story. I was living in Oregon and Washington. I'm originally a blue state boy. I was raised in blue states, Oregon, and then I lived in Washington for a couple years. And what I realized is that, listen, conservative Americans, there are conservatives in these blue states, but they have no say. They're living under the boot and the thumb of the far left radical progressive leadership. There's a reason why conservative, intelligent Americans are leaving these blue states. They get sick of it. They get sick of it. Give me a 1 in the chat. You know, while we have a second here, give me a 1 in the live chat in Rumble or on YouTube. If you formerly lived in a blue state, you said, listen, I've had enough of this. And then you packed your bags, packed up your family, sold your house, moved to a red state. Do we have any blue state, red state transplants that, listen, I've had enough of this. I'm out. Had enough. And this is, by the way, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people here. It's happening. There's effectively a mass exodus. This is happening. Not in the dozens or the hundreds or the thousands, in the millions. This is happening. Now, we saw, there's a lot of them. Look at that. We saw AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for whatever reason, speak at the Munich Security Council. What in the hell does AOC know about geopolitics or international security? Nothing. She became a laughingstock.
I think the first thing is realize that the Munich Security Conference is the Super Bowl of the sort of Euro-Atlantic relationship. Obviously, if you have political ambitions, presidential ambitions, you go there to demonstrate that you have some foreign policy chops. And on that panel that I was the third member of, those answers really fell flat, and I think it worries a lot of our allies that what happens in 2028 if one of these people is possibly the nominee, because they weren't serious, they weren't informed answers, and both of those answers have obvious policy behind them. And what it demonstrated to me most importantly is how successful President Trump has been on these issues, and how he has really created a space where leadership was required. He's delivering that leadership, and the left is kind of left befuddled.
Well, we all know, listen, I'm going to say something shocking here. AOC is a moron. She's a complete and total moron. I don't know if you've ever taken a couple seconds. That's all it takes, is a couple seconds. You listen to her yap. She's a moron. There's not one topic where she knows what she's talking about. She's also a plant. The Democrats said, well, listen, we've got this district. It's a minority district. We need somebody that can represent these minorities, has a high chance of winning. We don't want a Republican to win. So we're going to pick, I don't know, their strategy. I'm not saying this. The Democrats said, we're going to try to pick some, I don't know, cute Latina waitress, and we're going to run her. Even though she's a total dumbass, we're going to, sorry, pardon my language, even though she's a total idiot, we're going to run her. But she's totally unqualified. Everybody knows she's totally unqualified. She's a total plant. She's an industry plant is what she is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, real quick, right now, speaking of people that are not idiots, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt is going to be coming on out here any minute. She was scheduled to come on out 15 minutes ago, but listen, we are on her schedule. She is not on our schedule. So, okay, we're happy to be here. That's all that matters. We're here together. But Carolyn Leavitt is going to come on out here and let us know what's going on around the nation. Now, after that, I want to say this again. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a massive broadcast. Shout out Brandon Lehman, by the way. What's up, brother? Today is a massive broadcast because after Carolyn Leavitt is done with the press conference, we have not one, but two massive news stories to talk about today. I don't want to get into them yet because then we're going to get cut off by Carolyn Leavitt. I know it's happened before. So I'm saving them till after Carolyn Leavitt is done. What are the two stories, Matt Morris? Good question. We are going to be talking about what is currently going on in Iran. Things are escalating. There is a lot to talk about. This is a massive story that's unfolding right this very moment with Iran. Things are escalating. And we're going to break down the entire dynamic. We're going to talk about that after Leavitt is done. Beyond that, There was also another massive story. It seems as if Trump is on the cusp, the precipice, if you will, of exposing all of this 2020 election fraud. Word on the block is, rumor has it, Trump is going to be exposing all of this election fraud at the State of the Union address, which is scheduled for 6 days from now. That's 6 days from now, February 24th, I believe. And so things are heating up. Things are heating up. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a crazy week. It's going to be a crazy month. And we had better do our best to keep on top of all of it and put everything into context and make sure we understand everything going on. Things are about to get very complex. As a little bit of a heads up, some news cycles, it's kind of easy to understand. It's kind of easy to talk about. It's like, libtards getting owned. Ha ha ha. Libtards are so stupid. That's easy to talk about. We're about to be talking about, international election fraud, foreign interference. We're about to be talking about conflict in the Middle East, Operation Midnight Hammer 2.0. Why is it happening? How is it happening? What's the lead up? Where are we going here? We're going to break all of it down today. But first, we've got to get through the White House press conference. In the past, I've gone live in the morning like this, and I've tried to get up here and give my monologue about whatever's happening. And then right as I start, Carolyn Levitt comes out. So, okay, we're a little bit wiser now. We're going to wait for her to wrap up today, and then we're going to talk about all of the really big, massive news that's going on, because we do have a lot to talk about today. Now, while we wait here, there's something else. Senator John Kennedy just issued a statement earlier this morning about what's going on here. We are banning dead people from receiving federal welfare. It seems like a no-brainer.
We send billions of dollars to dead people, and they get cash. The checks get cash. It's obviously a lot of fraud.
And we're talking about Social Security checks.
No, we're talking about all kinds of checks.
All kinds of checks.
Yep. When you die, Katie, your name, not that you're going to die anytime soon, but when you die, your name goes to the Social Security Department. And they have a list of dead people. But they wouldn't share it with anybody else. They wouldn't share it with the Department of Treasury, for example. And I went to them and I said, why won't you tell Treasury who the dead people are? And Social Security said, well, we don't have the legal authority. And I said, sure you do. And they said, no, we don't. So I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere with them. So I had to go pass a bill. It took 4 years to pass the bill. Believe it or not, I had opposition.
Unbelievable.
But we finally got it passed. And so far as I can tell, dead people can still vote, but they can't cash checks because we're not going to be sending them to them anymore. And it's going to save billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Well, by the way, someone has been cashing the checks. It's not as if checks are being sent out and nobody's cashing them. Somebody has been. The money's been disappearing. If a check, you wait too long, it bounces, the money returns back to the sender. The money's been disappearing. There's a black hole. And so this is not just innocent, oh, sorry, we accidentally sent a check to your dead grandma because, we thought she was still alive. There was a 3-month overlap where we were confused. She died 3 months ago. That's not what we're talking about. That does happen to a certain extent. I'm sure everybody has kind of experienced that. Maybe if you have a relative that passed away. Okay. No, this is different though. This is institutional fraud, deliberate mass institutional fraud that is taking place in what states? The red ones or the blue ones? I forget. Is it the red ones or the blue? It's the blue ones. It is happening predominantly speaking in the blue ones. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. That's right. Now, any second now, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt is coming out. If we have time here, now that I think of it, it's probably a good opportunity to pull up some super chats. So wait here just a minute now, folks. Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt's coming on out here. Everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I appreciate it. It means a lot. Did you guys see yesterday evening, YouTube was down? Did you see that? I was trying to watch YouTube. I was trying to get some work done. And YouTube, the entire website, it's like somebody pulled the plug. For about 45, maybe 50 minutes, the entire damn site was offline. Couldn't watch any videos, couldn't pull up new videos. I'm looking on my back end. I had videos going on my end, and all the viewership just went, all the viewers disappeared. I said, hey, where are my viewers? What's going on here? And then within about an hour, they got it back up. That was insane. Now, the reason I say this, there was one website that was not down. You know that website? That website is called Rumble. Rumble was still up. YouTube was down, but Rumble, I said, man, I'm looking to watch a video. I'm looking to enjoy my evening. I'm going to go watch something on Rumble. So, hey, shout out Rumble. It was only YouTube that was down. I'm going to pull up these super chats. We got the zoom out. We got the peace symbol. Maybe that means something is happening right here. Ladies and gentlemen, something is happening. Man, this really is a small room. They cram all these members of the press into the tiniest room possible. It's all stuffy and hot. Everybody's sweating in here. Imagine the smell. They got to get a bigger room. Maybe they're going to use the new Trump ballroom at some point. I don't know what they're going to do. They're building this new massive ballroom. Maybe they can retrofit that thing. Now, I do have some super chats here. I got them pulled up here. Let me go ahead. Hold up. Stand by. Stand by here, ladies and gentlemen. Stand by. Oh, yeah, we got them pulled up. Okay. All right. Well, the first super chat I see over here, this is from... Let me adjust myself here right there. Okay, while we're waiting for Carolyn Levitt, she's coming on out here literally any second. Brainbleed. Super chat from Brainbleed said, you called me a sir before. It's ma'am. My brain bleeds from all this bull the left is sending out. Love your show. Can I tell you something? If you are following me on X or Twitter, you heard the news. You know what? Not only are you, ma'am, and by the way, I apologize, ma'am. I'm sorry. Now I know. I got my new driver's license in the state of Idaho just the other day. I pulled it out of my wallet. I looked at it. I'm a female. I kid you not. This is a real photo of my driver's license. I blocked out the incriminating details. Ladies and gentlemen, in the state of Idaho, I kid you not, I am literally a woman. I am legally a woman in the state of Idaho. They sent, I don't know, there was a mix-up on my ID. They messed it up. I don't know. So you're a ma'am. I'm a man. Everybody's a ma'am these days. Hey, it's ma'am. I am legally a woman in the state of Idaho. They misgendered me. I don't know how the hell this happened. You think I'm pretty? Am I a pretty girl? Okay, unbelievable. I'm probably the ugliest woman you've ever seen in your life. Now, you can't help but think back to the old King of the Hill, the old King of the Hill episode where Hank Hill, remember where Hank Hill, he had the same problem. He gets his license and he's a female also. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just like Hank Hill from King of the Hill. I am legally... I couldn't believe it. In fact, if I'm honest, I was at the bank yesterday. I pulled out my license at the bank. I had to give it to the bank teller. And she said, are you a woman? I said, huh? Give me that thing. Oh my God, I'm a woman. Oh my good Lord. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, now I've got to go back to the DMV. And wait in line. It's going to be another 4 hours or whatever out of my afternoon. I got to waste an afternoon at the DMV and tell them, hey, I'm actually not a woman. I'm a man. You know what they're going to say? Prove it. Do I have to? What do you mean? Do I have to? They'll say, sir, we need you to step into the back room, please. We need to have a pat down here. Do I have to? Okay. So anyway, that's what's going on in my life right now. That's what's going on in my life these days. Matina. Yeah, I'm officially Matina. That's right. And anyway, Carolyn Levitt is coming on out here any minute. Drop the pants. Yeah, ma'am, can you please drop your skirt? So anyway, that's what's happening in my life. That's what's going on right here. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Brainbleed. We have another super chat here. This is from Colin Wade. He said, how much waste is in the New York City budget when the city budget is larger than the entire budget of the state of Florida? I don't know if that's true. I'll take your word for it. I believe that. How much waste is in the New York City budget? I would suppose a good 99% of it. If I had to put a number down right now, I would bet 98, 99%. But hey, that's just my outside speculation here. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's right. I'm putting the hoe in Idaho. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Rumble Sucks. I appreciate that. I couldn't believe that. We have a super chat here from JRG Projects. He says, my family's from Michigan. Now we hang out in Florida most of the year. So much to do, and it's all new and even nostalgic business. Go Tampa Bay Lightning. Listen, there is a reason why everybody moves to Florida. Florida's like kind of a nice place to be. The weather's nice outside of the hurricanes, I guess. Outside of the hurricanes, the weather's nice. There's a reason why people move there. It's a desirable place to be. There's a reason why people retire. They say, all right, I'm moving to Florida. I'm moving to a retirement neighborhood. And, you know, that's like been the joke for 50 years now, but it's true. People like it. I've got an uncle that right now I believe is in the process of moving to Florida. My uncle. So there's a reason why people do it. We have a super chat here from Hexorcist. Shout out all the Floridians. Oh, there's Carolyn Levitt. Here we go, folks.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience as always. Let's begin with some scheduling announcements for the remainder of President Trump's very busy week. Today at 3 p.m., President Trump will host a Black History Month reception in the East Room of the White House. I know many of you will attend, and we will see you up
a little bit.
Tomorrow, President Trump will host a Board of Peace meeting at the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace, where he will announce that member states have pledged more than $5 billion towards the Gaza humanitarian and reconstruction efforts, and have also committed thousands of personnel to the International Stabilization Force and local police to maintain security and peace for Gazans. Tomorrow afternoon, the president will travel to the great state of Georgia, where he will visit 2 local businesses and give a speech on his efforts to make life affordable for working people. On Friday, President Trump will host a working breakfast with governors in the East Room here at the White House. And on Saturday night, President Trump and the First Lady will host the annual Governor's Dinner. Next, I'd like to provide an update on the economy. We're seeing promising signs every day that 2026 is going to be a record successful year for the American people, just as President Trump promised them. The January jobs report shattered expectations, highlighting how the president's pro-growth economic agenda is fueling American prosperity. The economy added 172,000 new private sector jobs to kick off the year. That's more than 2.5 times economists' predictions. The labor force participation rate went up while the unemployment rate fell. The prime age labor force participation rate is now at its highest since 2001. Most importantly, 100% of all job creation under President Trump continues to be in the private sector. This is truly remarkable. That's 615,000 private sector jobs that have been added in President Trump's second term thus far. These are real working people. These are real American families who will be living out their American dream. Meanwhile, federal government employment has shrunk to its lowest level since 1966, saving taxpayers $29 billion annually. And all of the net job growth under President Trump has gone to native-born Americans, ending the disgraceful pattern under Joe Biden of job gains going to non-citizens and illegal aliens. Additionally, on inflation, the new CPI report is even more proof of the progress made by President Trump. Despite all of the doom casting from the so-called experts, the president has managed to utilize powerful tariffs to secure trillions of dollars in investments into our country and rebalance our trade deals while simultaneously cooling inflation. Year-over-year inflation fell to 2.4% in January, beating expectations again and marking the lowest level since May. Core inflation, the best measure of inflation, dropped to its lowest level in nearly 5 years. Meanwhile, real average hourly earnings for all private sector workers rose in the month of January, which means more money is going back directly into people's pockets. After only 1 year of President Trump back in office, real earnings for all private sector workers have outpaced inflation by nearly $1,400, earning back roughly half of the $2,900 they lost under Joe Biden when 40-year high inflation was stealing Americans' purchasing power. President Trump's policies are and will continue to allow Americans' incomes to go further for bills, retirement, and achieving the American dream. A key part of the American dream is buying a home. And that is finally becoming more affordable under this president. This past week, it was announced the annual mortgage cost for a new home has fallen by $4,000 so far under President Trump, after rising by roughly $15,000 under Joe Biden. As a result, mortgage affordability has reached a 4-year best following recent bold action by the president to make home ownership more attainable for American families, not large Wall Street corporate institutional investors. At the same time, national median rents have fallen to a 4-year low and have declined for 6 consecutive months. The annual rental cost for a new rental unit has fallen nearly $100 so far under President Trump, after rising more than $3,000 under Joe Biden. And many are crediting that to the president's deportation efforts to remove illegal aliens from our communities and therefore from housing that should be used for American citizens. At the grocery store, the price of eggs, dairy, cheese, fresh fruit, apples, oranges, potatoes, tomatoes, and butter have fallen since President Trump took office, and he is continuing to fight for even lower prices at the grocery store for the American consumer. At the gas pump, fuel prices are down by almost 10% over the past year. The average national price for a gallon of regular gas is now less than $3 and is approaching $2.70 in some states, and much lower than that in many states across the country as well. We've seen in several states gas is under $2 a gallon. And at the pharmacy, prescription drug prices are down over the past year, with even more price relief ahead for American patients, thanks to President Trump's most favored nation drug pricing deals and the great health care plan, which he is calling on Congress to pass as soon as possible. What President Trump wants Americans to understand is that this is only the start and the best is yet to come. The historic success that we have seen since he took office is just the beginning of enormous growth and opportunity that we are about to witness. And I know the president looks forward to hitting the road and being with the great people of Georgia tomorrow to talk about just this. So with that, today, I know there's a lot of news. I will open it up to take your questions, and we're going to start, as always, with our new media seat, the great Michael Graham from Inside Sources.
Now
Thank
for
you
the
for being here,
questions.
Michael.
Thank you for having us, and thanks from our 200 newspaper partners around the country. So you mentioned gas. We didn't mention natural gas. And back where you live, your friends and family are paying among the highest prices for natural gas to heat their home and for electricity generation, the #1 source of power across New England. The cheap gas is in Pennsylvania. The 2 highest places to buy gas in the country, New York City and Boston. The problem is the blue states will not allow the gas to travel to produce electricity or to reach customers.
That is correct.
When President Trump first came back in office, there was some talk, him and Governor Hochul in New York possibly reaching a deal. When will consumers in the Northeast feel relief from President Trump's energy policies, and what can he do about state objections to expansion of infrastructure? Then I have a quick follow-up.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the president has promised all Americans across the country, and in particular in the Northeast, where we do face much higher costs of electricity and of energy, unfortunately, because of the Democrat policies in the area. From the federal government's perspective, the president and the National Energy Dominance Council, Secretaries Wright and Burgum, are doing all we can when it comes to federal permitting. The drill, baby, drill agenda is obviously underway. The president has made a huge push for more fossil fuels in this country. You look at what he did last week with respect to coal. Coal truly keeps the lights on in this country. We learned that in the recent winter storms. However, there's only so much that can be done at the federal level. That's why the president has called on blue state governors to participate in this energy dominance agenda, including governors in New England and the Northeast, by contacting Governor Hochul directly to get this Constitution pipeline underway. This is not only going to bring down the cost of energy in the Northeast, it's also going to support job growth and energy affordability and more opportunity for workers in the Northeast. And I just have a quick statistic here on energy that I found fascinating, and it's obviously true because I'm saying it up here. Red states with Republican legislatures currently enjoy lower average retail electricity prices than blue states with Democrat legislatures. And that's exactly why the president is calling on all blue state governors across New England and the Northeast to get on board. Let's bring prices down for all Americans, whether they live in a red or a blue state.
So right down the street from your alma mater, San Antonio College, talk about building an ICE facility that's causing a lot of political agita in New Hampshire, and for the Republican governor, Kelly Ayotte. Seems to be some miscommunications argued on both sides. Even Republican supporters of Trump who live in the town say, we're not sure we want this. What's your message to the folks in New Hampshire about this proposed ICE facility?
The message is that illegal immigration, while the border is secure, is still a problem across our entire homeland. And the previous administration allowed nearly 20 million illegal aliens from countries all over the world into our country. And the President and Secretary Noem have done a phenomenal job at deporting. Nearly 3 million illegals have left the country either through deportation or self-deportation over the past year. But obviously, there are a lot more illegal alien criminals left in our homeland. That includes in New England. There are many within our communities in New Hampshire, in Maine, and definitely in Massachusetts and in the Boston suburbs that need to be arrested, detained, and deported back to their home countries. And so the President and Secretary Noem, and I know ICE, are engaged with local governors across the whole country, including in New Hampshire, to open more detention facilities. This is an unfortunate consequence of the previous administration's border invasion that the President has thankfully put a stop to, but of course we still need to grapple with the illegal alien criminals who are here, and that requires more detention space. Thank you, Michael. Garrett.
On Iran, I'm not asking you for like military secrets here, but can you?
He is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump and with this administration. He's talking to many people. Of course, his national security team, first and foremost, and you know who the members of that team are. And this is something, obviously, the president takes seriously. He's always thinking about what's in the best interest of the United States of America, of our military, of the American people, and that's how he makes decisions with respect to military action of any kind.
And on the flip side of that, he's got the State of the Union speech next week. If he is going to take military action, does the administration believe it's important to sort of convince the American people, sell the American people? Will we hear something about that in the State of the Union to make the case for why something like that might be necessary to risk American lives?
Look, again, I'm not going to engage in a hypothetical. Good try, Garrett, but you can't catch me there. I will say, with respect to the State of the Union, you'll be hearing more about what is to come from the president's speech very soon at the appropriate time. It is going to be a very good and powerful speech, so everyone should tune in. Ed.
Caroline, thank you. I got two questions for
Sure.
you. About Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the administration's decided to appeal a judge's ruling that in essence was trying to put the slavery displays back, arguing that the federal government believed it had the power to disassemble and disassemble historical truths when it has some domain over historical facts. The judge said it does not. The administration said that you were planning to put up updated interpretive materials and provide a fuller account of the history of slavery at Independence Hall. What more was the administration, or is the administration, planning to add?
I'm not familiar with this specific instance, Ed, to be honest with you, but I will check in with the appropriate people who are overseeing this, and we'll get you a more firm answer.
One other question then. Yesterday in his statement about Jesse Jackson, the president said, despite the fact that I'm falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left, Democrats all, it was always my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. Where or when does the president believe he's been falsely called racist?
You're kidding, right? No. I will pull you plethora of examples. I'm going to get my team in that room to start going through the internet of radical Democrats throughout the years, Ed, who have accused this president falsely of being a racist. And I'm sure there's many people in this room and on network television across the country who have accused him of the same. In fact, I know that because I've seen it with my own eyes. And the president very much looks forward to having an event later this afternoon at 3 p.m. to celebrate Black History Month and to talk about how his policies are advancing opportunity and prosperity for all Americans through record tax cuts, through the Trump accounts that all Americans can access regardless of race. These are a great thing for the next generation of Americans. The president has also awarded hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding to strengthen educational outcomes at historically black colleges and universities across the country. Again, the president is protecting the hard-earned benefits of the 2.4 million black veterans who honorably served in our nation's armed forces by reducing the backlog of veterans waiting for their VA benefits and for their home loans through the Department of Veterans Affairs. So there is a lot this president has done for all Americans regardless of race, and he has absolutely been falsely called and smeared as a racist, and I'm happy to provide you those receipts, and we gladly will right after this briefing. Jennifer, go ahead.
You mentioned the $5 billion in pledges for the Board of Peace. Will we be able to get a breakdown of which countries are providing each of those pledges?
Yes.
And which countries are providing troops?
Sure, we're happy to provide that breakdown, and I'm also happy to provide the list of countries that will be attending tomorrow. I know it's more than 20 countries. I know there's a lot of interest in that. I'll spare myself reading you the list of 20 countries from the podium, but we will provide it, and the president will be opening the meeting tomorrow with remarks, and will sort of formally be chairing the meeting at the beginning before he departs for Georgia tomorrow.
And then on the sewage spill, the sewage pipe that broke on the Potomac, can you give us an update on the federal government's response? And officials have told CBS that some of that aging infrastructure is a concern, that this particular pipe wasn't even of the most urgent concern. Do you know if the government is looking into which other pipes could be at risk of collapsing?
Well, the next step in this process is for any of the three local jurisdictions involved, whether that's the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Maryland and Governor Moore, or the District of Columbia, to step forward and to ask the federal government for help and to ask for the Stafford Act to be implemented here so that the federal government can go and take control of this local infrastructure that has been abandoned and neglected by Governor Moore in Maryland for far too long. In fact, it's no secret that Maryland's water and infrastructure have been in dire need of repair. Their infrastructure has received a nearly failing grade in the 2025 report card from the American Society of Civil Engineers. This is the same grade they've received 5 years earlier. There has been no improvement under the leadership of Governor Moore. He's clearly shown he's incapable of fixing this problem, which is why President Trump and the federal government are standing by to step in. And for all of the environmentalists in the room and across the District of Columbia, let's all hope and pray that this governor does the right thing and ask President Trump to get involved, because it will be an ecological and environmental disaster if the federal government does not step in to help. But of course, we need the state and local jurisdictions to make that formal request. That's part of the legal process to move forward. Peter.
So you said that any of the three Democrats just need to ask. A few minutes ago, Maryland's Governor Wes Moore asked. He said, if the president wants me to ask nicely, our response is this: please, Mr. President, do your job.
To which I say, I'll ask the president and we will provide you with the next steps. But in all seriousness, the federal government has been preparing plans. The White House has been in contact with FEMA, with the Army Corps of Engineers, with the Environmental Protection Agency. Again, we've been standing by. This is a problem we want to fix, not just for the federal government, but for everyone who lives in the District of Columbia, including all of you. So you're welcome.
To your point about that, there are a lot of events coming up for America 250. The president wants people from all over to come to the nation's capital. Is he worried that by the summer, the Potomac River will still smell like poop?
He is worried about that, which is why the federal government wants to fix it, and we hope that the local authorities will cooperate with us in doing so. Steve.
So what will the $5 billion be used for in Board of Peace, and will that be sort of a down payment for much more money?
You'll be hearing more about that tomorrow at the meeting. If you recall, at the first meeting when we were in Davos, Jared Kushner did provide a very detailed PowerPoint presentation for the vision of Gaza, the reconstruction and the humanitarian efforts, of course, providing local security on the ground. That will be part of the discussion tomorrow, is how can we maintain security? First, you must achieve security to get to prosperity, which is sort of the second part of this plan. So you'll be hearing more about that tomorrow, but I would just point out $5 billion worth of investment. We're talking about reconstructing Gaza. I remember when those words came from the president's lips in the East Room many months ago, and all of you in the press were bewildered at how the president could have such an ambitious goal of rebuilding Gaza, which is obviously a place that has been just turmoiled by violence and chaos for many, many years. But we are well underway in doing that, and it's a historic accomplishment for this president.
Secondly, is the president seeing enough progress in the Iran talks to let negotiations go a little further? I mean, where do things stand after yesterday's talks?
I think you heard from the administration and the State Department yesterday that there was a little bit of progress made, but we're still very far apart on some issues. I believe the Iranians are expected to come back to us with some more detail in the next couple of weeks, and so the president will continue to watch how this plays out. Sure.
I'll follow up on that. Thank you, Caroline. On these Iran talks, I mean, how much time is the president willing to give it before he is seriously maybe considering military action? Is he willing to give it that full 2 weeks? And has he given the Iranian officials a deadline on when he wants to see a deal?
It's a fair question, Rachel, but I'm not going to set deadlines on behalf of the president of the United States from up.
And then just one more on the shutdown. We're now in this partial shutdown over DHS funding. Has the president personally spoken to the Democratic leaders in Congress? Can we expect to see them at the White House to try to make a deal on this?
Not to my knowledge, he hasn't had any direct conversation or correspondence with Democrat lawmakers recently. It doesn't mean he's not willing to. I'm just not aware of any conversations that have taken place. I do know the White House and the president's representatives have been in direct conversations with both Democrats and Republicans, but of course, Democrats are the reason that the Department of Homeland Security is currently shut down. They have chosen to act against the American people for political reasons, and now we have FEMA workers, the men and women of the United States Coast Guard, men and women of TSA who keep our airports moving, who will be working without paychecks for no good reason other than the Democrats wanting to pick a fight with Donald Trump. And the president thinks that is irresponsible and despicable. He wants the government to be open. We've been engaged in good faith negotiations with the Democrats. Last night they sent over a counter proposal that frankly was very unserious, and we hope they get serious very soon because Americans are going to be impacted by this.
Yep.
Sure.
Already are.
President Trump has talked about a forthcoming executive order on voter ID. Is there more details you can provide about for that? And can you talk about any steps that you're taking to overcome core challenges that you've kind of faced in this area before on voting?
Well, as the president said in that Truth Social post, he's discussing and exploring legal options for a potential executive order with respect to voter ID, but this is something he's made very clear he wants Congress to get done. The Save America Act is a common sense piece of legislation that has now passed the House of Representatives to ensure that voter ID is a requirement in the United States of America. This is a common sense policy that nearly 90% of the country agrees with. You need an ID to go and purchase alcohol. You need an ID to go to the library and check out a book. And so the president thinks you should have an ID to vote in our nation's elections. And I know the vast majority of Americans agree with him on that. And he wants Congress to move quickly to get it done.
Thank you so much. Cuba something?
Sure.
On Cuba, you know, it's increasingly being described as a humanitarian crisis. What is a successful outcome for the U.S. that the U.S. wants to see in Cuba? Is there anything less than regime change that would be considered success?
I think, as Secretary Rubio has articulated and the president himself, we obviously want to see flourishing and prosperous democracies all over the world, especially in our own hemisphere. I'm not dictating any actions the United States may take to get there, but of course that's in the United States' best interest to have Cuba be a truly free and prosperous democracy. Unfortunately, right now, that is not the case. They are a regime that is falling, their country is collapsing, and that's why we believe it's in their best interest to make very dramatic changes very soon, and we'll see what they decide to do. Sure.
Thank you so much. Following up on Gaza, this $5 billion, who exactly will be in charge of managing this money? Would that be the president himself making the final decisions on how these funds are spent?
It will be the Board of Peace, which the president is, of course, the chairman of, but all of the member parties, I believe, will have votes on the funding. And then, of course, there is that technocratic layer underneath the official Board of Peace with the member countries that will be making decisions as well. So if you just go back and look at the first event that we had where we sort of unveiled the structure of the Board of Peace, that structure remains in place, and they'll be overseeing the funds that will be announced tomorrow for their reconstruction and humanitarian efforts. Sure.
Another question on that Board of Peace announcement. You mentioned there will be the announcement of who comprises that International Stability Force. How soon will that force be deployed? And have all of the regional partners, all of the regional countries signed off on the makeup of that force?
I don't have a timeline for you today, but again, I'm sure you'll hear more about this tomorrow. So you'll join us at the event. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions.
Sure.
First, the president has talked a lot about housing affordability, and several countries that are facing housing shortages, including Canada, for example, have imposed a ban on non-citizens, like foreigners, from buying their houses. Do you know if that's a strategy that the president would be willing to deploy?
Well, first of all, the president is obviously committed to deporting illegal aliens from our country and those who are not lawfully present in the United States, which he has done at a record pace, which has led to the falling of rents, as I pointed out in my opening remarks.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, the president has recently announced that he is fighting for a ban on institutional investors and Wall Street billionaire corporations from buying up single-family homes that should be lived in his opinion, by American families. We know this is going to have a remarkable impact on the housing market and on prices and supply and demand for the American consumer and the American family. And then thirdly, the president is also expediting permitting as fast as we possibly can to build more homes, to increase supply, to obviously bring down the cost of home ownership and purchasing homes for the American people. And then also, as I mentioned as well, we do see mortgage rates falling. So all of this is combining to make housing more affordable in this country. There's still a lot more to do. The president is still digging his way out of the mess that was created by Joe Biden's administration in jacking up mortgage rates and jacking up housing costs. But we do see very positive trends in this direction. And the president wants the United States to be a nation of owners, not renters. He wants families to live in homes, not institutions and big corporations. Michael.
Caroline, secondly on Ukraine, yesterday Zelensky said in an interview that he says that it's not fair that the president is saying that Ukraine has to make concessions. He's saying this publicly and not Russia. Has the president seen these comments? And when the president says that Ukraine has to make concessions, is he referring to giving up Donbass?
I think the president would respond to that by saying he does not think it's fair that thousands of Ukrainians are losing their lives, and Russians too, in this deadly war. And that's why the president and his team have committed a tremendous amount of time and energy in bringing this war that is very far away from the United States of America, but nevertheless, this is a president of peace. And so he's committed a tremendous amount of time and energy to bringing this war to an end. Just yesterday, there was another round of trilateral talks between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. There was meaningful progress made in both parties. Both sides agreed to update their respective leaders and to continue to work towards a peace deal together. So there will be another round of talks in the future, but I think the president views this entire situation as very unfair, not just for Russians and Ukrainians who have lost their lives, but also for the American people and the American taxpayer who were footing the bill for this war effort before President Trump put a stop to it. And I would just remind everyone around the world that the United States is still selling weapons to NATO that are then being sent to Ukraine in their defense of their freedom in their borders. Michael.
Russia is reportedly joining Iran for joint naval exercises in the Gulf of Oman this week. Has the president issued any kind of warning to Russia or even China not to involve itself if the U.S. decides to strike Iran?
Not to my knowledge, no, or not that I would dictate from this podium. I wouldn't reveal the president's private conversations with world leaders. With respect to that, again, when it comes to Iran, the president has a decision to make, and he will do that, and I'm not going to broadcast what that decision may be ahead of him.
President Barack Obama, Caroline, was recently asked if aliens are real. He says they're real, but he hasn't seen them. The president's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, told Miranda Devine of the New York Post that the president has a prepared speech on this issue that he prepares to deliver at the right time. Is that true? And does the Trump administration believe aliens are real?
Well, a speech on aliens would be news to me. That sounds very exciting, though. I'll have to check in with our speech writing team. And that would be of great interest to me personally, and I'm sure all of you in this room, and apparently former President Obama, too. So we'll keep you posted on that. Tyler.
Aliens.
The White House has touted an unprecedented amount of cooperation with counties in Minneapolis after the negotiations with Tom Homan. Are those written or verbal deals with the sheriff? How many have agreed to cooperate on immigration enforcement who previously refused to do so?
Yeah, the last time I spoke with Mr. Homan, which was just a few days ago, he assured us that nearly every single county in the state of Minnesota has agreed to notify ICE when they are releasing criminal illegal aliens from their jails. This is an unprecedented level of cooperation that we have not seen.
It's a big deal.
It has led to not only cooperation to detain illegal aliens in Minnesota, which just this past week I have looked at at the list, they've detained some very heinous people who none of you would want living in your communities, but has also led to a much more calm situation on the ground. We've also seen, and you've seen this with your own eyes play out, the local police and the state police have now cooperated in the arrests of left-wing agitators and criminals who are unlawfully obstructing immigration enforcement in their efforts. So this is a huge win, and again, the president sent Mr. Homan to Minnesota to do a job, and he has done it well, and I think the situation on the ground proves that.
Are those like written agreements that they've been signed by various officials in the state?
These are agreements that have been made by state and local officials in the federal government, and we are seeing that cooperation play out every single day. These counties are notifying ICE when they are releasing criminal illegals from their jail, and we do know that they are arresting left-wing agitators who are unlawfully impeding law enforcement. There's video to show that show it yourself. You can view it with your own eyes.
Good.
John.
Thank you, Caroline. You mentioned two things: DHS closed and the SAVE Act IDs. Both of these could get solved in 15 minutes if Senate Leader John Thune simply got rid of this phony 60-vote cloture rule and got 51 votes, and that would be the end of it, because everyone in this room knows if the Democrats take over, they'll get rid of that rule in 90 minutes. They already tried it one time, and the two Democratic senators that stopped it are no longer there, Manchin and Sinema. President Trump is backing a lot of these senators for re-election, and yet they will not get rid of the 60-vote cloture rule, which is holding everything up. What is the president's position on John Thune in the Senate finally getting rid of this so this legislation can get moved?
This guy knows what's up.
The president has a good relationship with Senate Majority Leader John Thune. They keep in very close contact, and they work together all of the time. I hear your passion in your voice, and I know it's shared by many Americans across the country, including the president himself. He wants to see the SAVE Act voted, and he's expressed that both publicly to all of you, the American people, but also privately in his conversations with Senate Majority Leader Thune and many other members of Congress as well. Yes, Rob, go ahead. Good to see you.
So J.B. Pritzker just recently signed the bill. The law went into effect in January, and it's supposedly going to allocate about $2.5 billion to illegals to go to college and financial aid in the state of Illinois. What is the White House's reaction to this? Illinois is already, by 2027, they're supposed to have a $3 billion deficit. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. I would say the president certainly thinks that Governor Pritzker is not doing a very good job of managing his state, as evidenced by not only the waste, fraud, and abuse, but also the crime in the city of Chicago that unfortunately Governor Pritzker has refused to pick up the phone and call the White House and ask for help on, which is something his residents want him to do, but he refuses to do for political reasons. As for the specific money, we'll take a look and get you an answer. You're welcome. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Two questions. One is about the president's trip to Georgia tomorrow. If you can provide some additional information about that, why Northwest Georgia was chosen for this particular trip, for instance.
Sure. Well, Georgia is obviously a very important state to the president and to the Republican Party, and the president loves the people of Georgia. He'll be touring, like I said, a steel facility, and then he'll also be stopping by another local business, and he will be giving remarks on affordability, on the economy, on all of the great economic news that I just shared with you earlier. He'll be meeting and greeting with everyday Americans, and that's what the president loves to do, to get out across the country, and he's spoken about his intention to go across the country a lot more, and obviously tomorrow's trip is evidence of that.
Secondly, last week, as you know, big event that took place in the Roosevelt Room, the president announcing that the EPA has repealed these federal limits on emissions for cars, trucks, and power plants. And in the president's presentation, he mentioned that American families will save $2,500 for a new car or truck. Where is the promise coming from automakers that they're going to pass along their savings to those families all across the country?
It's a great question, John. That was an economic analysis that was provided to the president, and I'd be happy to provide that to you so you can take a look yourself. But I'm glad you brought up the president's announcement last week, because this is one of the largest deregulatory actions ever taken in the United States of America. And overall, it's going to save our country $1.3 trillion in regulatory burdens that have really done nothing for our country, nothing for our environment, nothing for our economy. In fact, this announcement received widespread and bipartisan praise. I think I recall seeing the editorial board of the Washington Post, of all places, even commending the president and Administrator Zeldin for this historic action last week. So there's no doubt it is going to save the American consumer money, and I'd be happy to provide that specific economic analysis to you. Sure, in the middle, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. Governor Moore in Maryland signed a bill that is ending the law enforcement cooperation with ICE. And by doing that, a lot of local sheriffs are not happy, and in fact, they met today in Annapolis to come up with either a legal action. What is the message of the White House to those sheriffs and to the residents of Maryland?
Well, first of all, it's another despicable action by Governor Wes Moore. Why would you prevent your state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal law enforcement? If you just ask them, to your point, if you ask a sheriff across the country if they want to have that level of cooperation and coordination with the federal government, of course they do. It makes their jobs easier. It keeps them out of hostile and dangerous environments. It allows them to detain illegal alien criminals who have committed heinous crimes in our country with the most safe circumstances possible. So the president, of course, continues to always stand on the side of law enforcement, and this is another just horrible and frankly political action taken by Governor Wes Moore, and unfortunately the people of his state are going to reap the consequences of it. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. President Trump just said on Truth Social that it would be a big mistake for the UK to hand over control of Chagos Islands to Mauritius. But the State Department earlier this week has said that the U.S. does support that handover. So does this post now suggest that the U.S. does not, or that President Trump has changed his mind on this?
The post should be taken as the policy of the Trump administration. It's coming straight from the horse's mouth. When you see it on Truth Social, you know it's directly from President Trump. That's the beauty of this president and his transparency and relaying this administration's policies to all of you and to the rest of the world. Carrie, go ahead.
There's been a series of walkouts from public school students that have been sort of provoked by a number of public school administrators. What are your thoughts on this? What's the administration's thoughts on this? Will they be taking any actions on these walkouts against ICE?
Look, I think obviously the president and the administration support the First Amendment rights of all American citizens, and if they're peacefully protesting, then that's their constitutional obligation and right and responsibility to do so. Of course, the administration also wants to see American school children in school learning and educating. And I think it does speak to the left-wing bias that is unfortunately very present in our nation's public school system. And it's something that Secretary McMahon has been working very hard to root out of our public school system by ensuring that local governance and local control takes place over our nation's public schools, and that parents and educators closest to students have a greater say over curriculum and academia in our country.
These teachers should be fired.
Take a couple more. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. The Vatican announced earlier today that they would not be joining the Board of Peace initiatives over concerns that it could potentially compete with the United Nations over handling crisis conflicts. What's the White House's response to that?
Yeah, look, we saw that. I think it's deeply unfortunate. I don't think that peace should be partisan or political or controversial. And of course, the administration wants all those who were invited to join the Board of Peace to join. Because again, the Board of Peace is overseeing the reconstruction of a territory that has been plagued with violence, with bloodshed, with poverty for far too long. And this president has a very bold and ambitious plan and vision to rebuild and reconstruct Gaza, which is well underway because of the Board of Peace. This is a legitimate organization where there are tens of member countries from around the world, and we think that's an unfortunate decision. In the back, sure.
Thank you, Caroline.
I'll go to both of you, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, and then Jake, you can go. You're welcome.
Caroline, can you tell me, is there an update regarding the tariff rebate checks that the White House has promised?
I don't have an update for you on timeline, but I know that it's something that the president and his economic team continue to very seriously discuss.
Thank you, Caroline. I've got two questions. First, does the president see some sort of religious or prophetic component to the unfolding developments in the Middle East?
I haven't spoken to him about that particular perspective, to be honest with you, but of course the president wants peace for all people of all faiths all around the world, and that's part of his push to create peace in the Middle East, which he has done successfully.
And my second question is, as his popularity rises around the world, and especially in regions where he's invested so much effort in promoting peace and ending wars, do you think we might be watching the emergence of a global MAGA movement? Is this something that the president has discussed at all?
Well, I don't know, Jake, but I sure hope so. Take a couple more. Go ahead. Sure.
I wanted to ask you about Iran. As the U.S. military builds up around Iran, is President Trump coordinating war plans with Israel so that if he does decide to strike, that Israel will be a part of those strikes?
No doubt.
Look, I don't have any specifics on the president's recent conversations with Israel. As you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu was just here at the White House last week or the week before. But again, with respect to Iran, there was some progress made yesterday. There are still a lot of details to discuss, and we'll continue to see how this plays out. The United States government, of course, is always in close communication and correspondence with the state of Israel, and that starts right at the top with the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu themselves. One more. Go ahead.
One more.
Last week we saw the underlying affidavit for the search warrant that was executed in Fulton County, and there was not any mention in that document about foreign election interference in the 2020 election. I'm wondering if DNI Gabbard has uncovered that in Georgia or in Puerto Rico, where we know her team was sent as well.
I don't have any updates for you on that today. I would defer you to the director's office herself.
Sure. Two questions. One on the president's schedule today. It says he has signing time. What is he signing today? Are we expecting executive orders or actions? That's the first question. And then second, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that a U.S. arms sale package for Taiwan is in limbo. Can you just confirm this reporting / offer any additional comment? And how concerned is the administration that if an arms deal with Taiwan went through, that this could disrupt the China-U.S. Trade truce?
Sure. Well, I haven't read the full Wall Street Journal report. I will just say with respect to an arms sale to Taiwan, I don't have any announcements or updates on that for you today. And to your first question about what the president will be signing, he will be signing an executive order, which you will all be hearing about later this afternoon, and you will see him in 1 hour at the Black History Month reception. We'll see you there. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Do not go anywhere. Great job, Carolyn Levitt. But we are now going to segue into the second half of today's broadcast. We have two big, massive stories to talk about today. Really, we're just getting going, so do not go anywhere yet, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on some good coverage here. We are going to talk about Iran. They talked about it a little bit. We are going to deep dive this entire situation with Iran. Big things are happening. Yesterday was kind of it was a fork in the road, and maybe yesterday we kind of went down the wrong path. Well, we didn't, but really Iran chose to go down the wrong path. Perhaps yesterday. We're going to break down this entire dynamic. Things are escalating very quickly in the Middle East right now. Beyond that, we also have news that we're going to cover after the Iranian story, talking about 2020 election fraud and perhaps foreign interference. So, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well as on Rumble. I appreciate it a lot. Why don't we go ahead and start breaking down the news? Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some massive news pertaining to President Trump's ongoing nuclear talks with the nation of Iran. And I'll tell you what, as things currently seem, the Iranian regime is about to learn what can only be described as a very difficult lesson. You see, yesterday afternoon, negotiations between the U.S. and Iran were held in Geneva, Switzerland, and it seems as if the negotiations have pretty much just imploded, for lack of a better word. And so as a response, we have been seeing massive amounts of U.S. military equipment, planes, ships, soldiers, troops getting relocated from the U.S. flying across the Atlantic, down across Europe, into the Middle East, as if something big is looming on the horizon. Now, today, we are going to comprehensively break down this entire situation, how we got here, where we currently are right now, and where we might end up going in the future. So take a seat. This is going to be an absolutely massive geopolitical deep dive, if you will. But in order to kick things off, I want you all to take a look at this Fox News report from late last night. Take a listen.
Harris, good morning. A massive amount of U.S. military equipment continues to flood into the Middle East in preparation for action against Iran. Reports indicate the U.S. has moved more than 50 fighter jets to the region over the past 24 hours alone. Along with the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group already in place and the USS Gerald R. Ford on the way, there are a variety of other U.S. Navy assets in the Red and Mediterranean seas. While talks on Tuesday left both sides saying that progress was made, there are still major questions about Iran's willingness to curb their nuclear program or address the growing regional ballistic missile threat. Yesterday on Fox News, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about the negotiations.
They agreed to meet afterwards, but in other ways, it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it. But of course, the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point. But if we do, that'll be the president's call.
President Trump's requirement for any sort of deal or negotiation with Iran going forward is 0% uranium enrichment. You are not allowed to enrich uranium. You have lost that privilege. In the past, during the Barack Obama administration, we allowed them to enrich uranium up to a 3.7 or 3.75% level. Trump has said 0%, it's over, shut it down. And that is the red line in the sand. Iran doesn't seem to like that. And so we're at a little bit of an impasse here.
The Iranians continue to threaten the United States. From the supreme leader to lower-level commanders, the IRGC has promised to go after American military interests in the event of escalation in the region. Iran's president has tried to strike a more diplomatic tone on nuclear issues, despite the threatening rhetoric from the rest of Iranian leadership.
Now, we're going to talk about what that threatening rhetoric from the Ayatollah, namely, looks like. But first, we have a report that I want to share with you from the Institute for the Study of War, International Institute for Study of War. They released a report relating to all of this news coming out of Iran, this peace deal, this negotiation. This report says, breaking news, Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has just rejected the United States' demands for Iran to halt uranium enrichment and limit its ballistic missile program in a speech on February 17th. That was yesterday. Khamenei's speech coincided with the second round of U.S.-Iran talks in Geneva, Switzerland, that happened yesterday afternoon. Iran has presented several proposals to the United States that do not meet President Trump's demands for 0% enrichment. Iran seeks significant economic relief in return for the limited nuclear concessions it has offered to make. But Iran, they are demanding we need to be able to enrich uranium up to 3.7, 3.75, which is kind of the agreement that they had with Barack Obama. That is intolerable for President Trump. Now, like I said, crazy rhetoric coming from the Ayatollah Khamenei. He posted this late last night following this Geneva meeting kind of fell through. This is what the leader of Iran said late last night. He has an X account. He said, the U.S. president keeps saying that they have the strongest military force in the world. The strongest military force in the world may at times be struck so hard that it cannot get up again. So that is a threat. He's talking a big game. That is a threat from Ayatollah Khamenei. He goes on to say he wasn't done. He says, the Americans constantly say that they've sent a warship towards Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous piece of military hardware. However, more dangerous than that warship is the weapon that can sink that warship to the bottom of the sea. Once again, big talk can only be described as a threat. sort of alluding to this notion that Iran is able to blow up U.S. maritime vessels, perhaps even an aircraft carrier. Well, that is exactly what he's saying, because this is the official Khamenei state media page. They posted this yesterday. A weapon more dangerous than a warship. And this is a picture of the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, sunk to the bottom of the ocean, a little tombstone with the presidential seal. USS Gerald R. Ford, sunk to the bottom of the ocean. They posted this. This is the official Khamenei government media page. So when I said that these negotiations in Geneva seem to have fallen through, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I say that is because this is what Ayatollah Khamenei is saying later. This is yesterday evening, shortly after the meeting. Now, we also see that Iran, following Operation Midnight Hammer, carried out this last summer, has been rebuilding their nuclear enrichment facilities across the country, the same ones that we blew up 6 months ago, attempting to make them impervious to the same sort of bunker buster bombs that took them out last time in the first place. We have a report here. Satellite images now show Iran repairing and fortifying military and nuclear sites amid U.S. tensions. Satellite imagery reveals that Iran has recently built a concrete cover over a new facility at a sensitive military site and buried it under the soil, advancing construction amid rising tensions with the U.S. at a location reportedly struck. This one was struck by Israel in 2024. The images also show Iran burying tunnel entrances at a nuclear site bombed by the U.S. during Israel's 12-day war with Iran last year, reinforcing other tunnel entrances and repairing missile bases damaged in the conflict. Let's pull these images up on the big screen. So here you have one. Yeah, they're covering these bunkers in concrete, burying them in soil, attempting to make these bunkers. A lot of these bunkers are either nuclear enrichment facilities, nuclear storage facilities, or ballistic missile storage facilities is what these are. They're attempting to make them impervious to U.S. bunker buster bombs. To that, I would say good luck. I don't think they are going to successfully do that. And of course, this entire dynamic, however, is absolutely unacceptable to Trump, to President Trump. He's been publicly saying as much for almost 2 decades. Here's a quote from President Trump posted in November 4th of 2011. This is 15 years ago. This is before Trump was even involved in politics. At this point, he hadn't even, he wasn't president. He wasn't campaigning. He posted as a businessman. He said, Iran's quest for nuclear weapons is a major threat to our nation's national security interests. We cannot allow Iran to go nuclear. So Trump has been saying this for 15 years, long before he ever got involved in politics. This is what I could find on Twitter going back to 2011. And this post seems to be at least, well, let me take a look here. There's something else I want to show you, because now we get to where things are going on. We have a report coming out from Axios. Like I said, things are escalating. We have a report coming from Axios earlier today following the fallout of this negotiation that seems to have not gone well last night in Geneva. Breaking news. The Trump administration is preparing for a potential war with Iran that could last weeks and may begin, quote, very soon, according to Axios. Israeli officials say the government is bracing for the possibility of war within days. U.S. sources estimate a decision could take weeks, but stress that patience at the White House is running thin. Now, I want to be honest. Generally, personally, I don't put a lot of faith or trust in anything coming out of Axios. Axios is a far-left propaganda outlet. I think we all know that to be the case. However, this post coming from this news report coming out of Axios, frankly, seems to be somewhat grounded in reality. And the reason why I say that is because last night we saw an absolutely massive relocation of U.S. military assets from the U.S. across the Atlantic, down across Europe, into the Middle East. And by the way, this started last night after this meeting in Geneva took place. The meeting seems to have not gone well. Immediately after that meeting ended, mass relocation of military assets from the U.S. across the Atlantic, across Europe, into the Middle East. And this is actually started last night. This is continuing right now to this very moment. Seems like things are really escalating here. Now, I want to share with you here, over the past 48 hours, massive movements of aerial assets towards the Middle East has continued. 48 F-16 aircraft, 12 F-22 aircraft, 18 F-35 aircraft, 6 E-3G Sentry AWACS aircraft, about 40 individual refueling aircraft, at least one RC-135V rivet joint strategic intelligence aircraft, peak preparedness, and this is before the arrival of the American aircraft carrier Gerald Ford, which is on the way right now as well. Take a look at this. After the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier group transits the Atlantic, by the way, this carrier group, Gerald R. Ford, the very same carrier group that Khamenei was talking about blowing up and sinking to the bottom of the ocean, Gerald R. Ford carrier group, this aircraft carrier with its entire battle group, right now it's passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. It's right here. Okay? This is a visual representation of everything that we right now have already positioned in the Middle East near Iran or soon to be near Iran. So anyway, after the Gerald R. Ford aircraft strike carrier group transits the Atlantic, the U.S. will have not one but 2 aircraft carriers and 15 destroyers, plus a few submarines to work with across combatant commands. To put this into perspective, approximately 33% of the deployed U.S. Navy fleet is represented below, off the coast of Iran, or soon to be off the coast, like in the area at a minimum. In total, capable of carrying 600 individual TLAM, this is Tomahawk missiles. So 600 individual Tomahawk missile launch tubes in the region as well. We saw Tomahawk missiles were a key component of Operation Midnight Hammer. With Midnight Hammer, everybody talked about the bunker buster bombs and the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. A lot of Tomahawk missiles also that were getting launched from destroyers in the region, and also submarines in the region that are capable of similarly launching Tomahawk missiles. So here's kind of a little bit of some extra information about the Gerald R. Ford. U.S. Navy Ford-class aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford has just turned on their tracking as they approach the Strait of Gibraltar. They're about to pass into the Mediterranean out of the Atlantic. The map is rotated here 90 degrees. Once the strait transit has been completed at an average of 20 knots, this aircraft carrier and its battle group, they will end up in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea in about 4 days. Why is this important? Why am I sharing this with you? Because now we know, kind of as a matter of fact, we're not going to see any massive plays getting made. We're not, in all likelihood, we're not going to see any strikes against Iran for another 4 days because the USS Gerald R. Ford is not going to be there for 4 days. So I think right now things are probably on ice. We're chilling right now. We're hanging out for about 4 days. But here's a very good question, because I see some people in the live audience in the comments down below asking this. As all of this is escalating, right now, sort of on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned or worried should we be here? Well, keep in mind, we have seen President Trump successfully carry out Operation Midnight Hammer, a very short, very precise series of strikes on Iran last summer with 0 casualties, as well as the apprehension of Maduro. Once again, a very short, very precise operation on the mainland of Venezuela with 0 casualties. We also know that Trump is not under any circumstance looking for some sort of elongated war on terror type of situation. In fact, as many of you will remember, President Trump, during the 2016 Republican primary, actually campaigned against Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother, about how stupid and incompetent the war on terror was and the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. Trump was always an outspoken, very outspoken critic of that, the war on terror, and the way that the Bushes and the neocons handled the Middle East. So we know that Trump is not looking for a situation like that. So personally, I am totally comfortable maintaining some faith that President Trump is able to properly handle this situation and that we won't end up in a war on terror 2.0 type of situation. I think we've got good reason to believe that Trump is not going to get this country involved in a similar dynamic. Now, to really put this entire situation into proper context, with all of that being said, to help make sense of everything that's going on here, I want to spend a couple minutes here talking about the history. There's something else I think we all need to talk about here, and that is Barack Hussein Obama's nuclear deal with the Iranians that was made in 2015, otherwise known as the JCPOA. This is called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. This is Barack Obama's nuclear deal. So let's go through the history here because, frankly, it is difficult to get a grasp of where we are currently with Iran, what is happening right now, and where we might be going in the future if you don't, or if we don't fully understand Obama's nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and why it was really so catastrophic and in a lot of ways has gotten us in the situation that we are in right now. Now, effectively, this nuclear deal with Iran, which was signed off on in 2015, was effectively nothing more than a short-term bribe aimed at temporarily stopping Iran's nuclear buildup. Obama agreed to give Iran $1.7 billion in cash on a big pallet of money. You guys might remember Obama's pallet of cash. That was big news a decade ago. Similarly, at the same time, Obama agreed to lift right around $150 billion worth of sanctions per year that had been on Iran. In exchange for giving Iran these things, lifting $150 billion worth of sanctions and giving them a $1.7 billion stack of cash, Iran promised the United States, promised Obama, that they were not going to enrich uranium beyond, to be precise, 3.67%, and that they also would not stockpile more than 300 kilograms of this enriched uranium. 330 kilograms is right around 660 pounds, to put that into perspective. Okay, good question. Why were these caps, why were these limits chosen? Because this, under the terms of this deal, this still allowed Iran to pursue a nuclear energy program, but at the same time prohibited them from making nuclear weapons, which can technically be created with anywhere from 20% enriched uranium and upwards. That is, if you stockpile enough of it. So we limited the degree to which they were allowed to enrich uranium below nuclear weapons grade levels, 3.67. You need at a minimum 20%, and then you stockpile a lot of that enriched uranium, you can make a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon. So we limited the degree to which they can enrich it and the degree to which they can stockpile it. Now, here is one of the massive problems with this deal. There's a lot of problems with this deal, but this is perhaps the biggest one. This deal was only short-term and temporary. It had what is called a sunset clause that kicked in after only 15 years, at which point the Iranians would be free to do whatever they wanted with their nuclear enrichment. They could, after 15 years of this JCPOA deal, after 15 years, the deal is now no longer in effect, and then they could just kind of do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to continue enriching uranium up to 20, 30, 40, 50%, well, the deal's over. Unless a new deal has been negotiated, they could do that. So if Trump hadn't pulled the United States out of this Obama-era deal, the JCPOA, in 2018, you might remember Trump pulled us out of that deal shortly after getting into office. By the end of the JCPOA's agreed timeline, within 15 years, Iran would have been, do the math, right around $2.2 trillion richer by nature of removing these sanctions. Their nuclear enrichment program would have been 15 years more entrenched and robust. And then, once the deal is done, they'd be free to enrich uranium to their heart's content with no barriers or speed limits whatsoever. So, what did Trump do in 2018? This is why Trump took the exact opposite approach that Barack Hussein Obama took. Trump in 2018 pulled the United States out of the JCPOA and effectively told Iran, hey, dismantle your nuclear enrichment program or the sanctions are not going to decrease. No, they are going to increase. The pressure, the U.S. pressure on Iran is going to increase because we are done paying short-term bribes to a bunch of uranium-enriched terrorists to get them to try to follow the speed limit. We're done doing that. We're done making deals like this. This entire situation is incompetent. And then what happened? Well, here's a good question. What was Iran's response in 2018 when President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the JCPOA? Iran immediately started pumping out and stockpiling uranium that was enriched up to 60%. They started making it as a response. That was their response to President Trump in 2018. By the way, those levels of enrichment in uranium, at that point, you can make a nuclear weapon. Everybody knows it. Everybody agrees. At that point, you can make a nuclear bomb if you're able to stockpile enough of it. Enough of which, by the way, that can be used to make a nuclear weapon. So they started stockpiling and hyper enriching. Now, as you all know, shortly after this happened, Biden ended up stepping into the White House under some pretty curious circumstances and effectively altered course 180 degrees back to the Obama era style of dealing with Iran. Obama, for 4 years, attempted to appease and placate Iran, even attempting to revive Obama's incompetent JCPOA nuclear deal. Biden tried to default to the Obama era deal. Trump is back in the White House now. So now here we are 8 years later, and the Iranian regime has proven to be just as belligerent and aggressive as ever. I think you all just saw that. I was showing you some of the tweets, some of the posts that Khamenei is making, talking about blowing up aircraft carriers. They haven't changed at all. They're not exactly good faith actors, to say the least. Now, beyond Iran, let's talk big picture. Zoom out here for a minute. Beyond Iran, Trump has always been very public about his goal of nuclear deproliferation. President Trump, you saw that tweet from 2011, going back further than that, Trump has always been very cautious of nuclear weapons. One of his stated pieces of agenda for a long time has been to reduce the number of nuclear weapons around the world, not just with Iran, but with everybody. In fact, this is why President Trump took a trip over to North Korea in 2019 to talk about nuclear disarmament and nuclear de-escalation. This is why he's been actively negotiating, still to this day right now, with China and Russia about reducing everyone's nuclear stockpiles and nuclear arsenals. Those talks are ongoing, and by the way, so far have already been somewhat effective. Deals with Russia and China have already been made insofar as that goes. This is one of the massive reasons why President Trump is so concerned about demographic change in all of these nuclear-armed European nations. Because France or the United Kingdom or Germany, they have a nuclear arsenal now, but what happens if 20 or 30 years from now, these European nations become effectively Islamic caliphates? Kind of seems like the way that they are going. Well, then we have a problem. Then we've got France, the nuclear-equipped Islamic caliphate. That's not good for anybody. So this is one of the reasons why Trump has been so concerned about demographic change in Europe, amongst many other reasons. And this is also why President Trump, as you just saw a moment ago, has been so publicly outspoken against Iran getting a nuclear weapon, going back publicly as far as 2011. What's more, Iran, specifically on an individual level, is probably, I think you all know this, one of the single most aggressive and belligerent nations on the face of the planet. Really, I think we can all agree Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. The debate here is, what is the best way to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? Well, we've tried it the Biden way. We've tried it the Obama way. We tried it the George Bush way. We've tried appeasement. We've tried ignoring them. We've tried giving them fat stacks of cash. We've tried applying sanctions. We've tried lifting sanctions. None of it has really stopped Iran. To be honest, you know the only thing that has ever stopped Iran? Bombing their enrichment facilities. Frankly, that is all that has ever worked. And that is, I think, what we're about to see again, except this time I would suspect we see something a little bit bigger, a little bit more grandiose here. And so here we are. Trump, for a very long time, has remained very firm on this topic. No nuclear weapons for Iran. And as things currently seem, President Trump, as it relates to Iran, President Trump is done playing games. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a big one. That is our big daily recap with what is going on in Iran. If you could ask me right now, Matt, when are things going to pop off here? When are things going to start popping off? Well, I think it's fair to say we're not going to see any action for another 4 days. And the reason why is because we talked about that carrier strike group. Gerald R. Ford is right now floating across the Mediterranean. It's going to take them 4 days. Carriers are not super fast. Okay, carrier strike groups are not known for their speed. So it's going to take another 4 days to travel across the Mediterranean. So hold up, what day is today? Some guy in the live chat says, Matt Morris, you're the biggest MAGA douche on YouTube. You know what? Coming from somebody like you, frankly, I take that as a compliment. Hey, thank you. Coming from a mentally ill, deranged, psychotic, Trump derangement syndrome freak in the live chat, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is another story that we're going to talk about today. There's another story we're going to talk about today. We're about to talk about 2028 election fraud. Let me just let me just compose myself here. That was a big one. Take a little break here. Okay, you ready? Are we ready? Hey, before we get into the 2020 election fraud topic here, do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. And then after we're done with this, we're going to go through super chats and Rumble rants. So thank you all very much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has been making some very serious, very curious posts on Truth Social, really over just the last 12 to 18 hours. And as it would seem, President Trump is getting ready to expose all of the far lefts, all of the Democrats' election fraud, namely pertaining to 2020. In fact, take a look at this. Late last night, President Trump posted this on Truth Social. He said, this is what he said: crooked elections cannot be allowed in the USA. And then he reposted something else. In addition with that, he said, Dan Bongino and John Solomon on his show today, and Solomon made an interesting prediction that Trump is going to soon unveil evidence that foreign powers did in fact meddle in the 2020 election, which will result in John Thune ultimately caving on the filibuster, and the Save America Act will get passed. We're going to be unveiling the evidence of 2020 election fraud. Okay, well, folks, President Trump himself, that very video between John Solomon from yesterday and Dan Bongino that we're talking about, well, Trump himself went on to post that very video. So why don't we put this up on the big screen? President Trump, what are we talking about here, sir?
Now we have a bunch of lazy senators who want to threaten the filibuster, not get off their feet and talk and really represent the people and stand for what they believe in. And all the American people are asking John Thune to do is to restore the Senate to the way it used to work before Mitch McConnell's lazy filibuster ideas kind of came into play. And I think that the American people are going to be there. Here's what I think is going to happen, Dan. And I think you probably know some of this because you had a foresight into some of the things that the Bureau now knows that was kept from the American public. I think Donald Trump is going to change the narrative in America. I think he's going to change some senators' minds, and he's going to do it by revealing some of the things that Chris Wray and that Chris Krebs and other major officials who were in charge of the integrity of our elections and who told us it was a perfect election in 2020. He's going to start revealing some of the intelligence that was kept from the American people.
Oh.
And we're going to see that our foreign adversaries have monkeyed with our system more than we knew, more than those driver's licenses coming into Chicago that you helped get all of us to understand about a few months ago, about China sending fake driver's licenses to help Joe Biden in. There are going to be significant efforts by foreign powers, some friends, some enemies, that were trying to meddle in the system, and they got pretty far down that path. And I think when senators realized their state could have been targeted, when senators realized that the intention of the identities of some of their voters might have been assumed, I think there's going to be a different debate in America. And I think if the president takes the time to educate people and show them that maybe the stories we got from the last leadership weren't true, I think he's going to pick off the votes. And then the American people are going to put some pressure on John Thune, and they're going to surgically implant a stiff back, and he's going to change that filibuster for this particular thing, make it a standing filibuster, make the Democrats talk till they drop, and then we'll get a vote in the summer. But I think there's some big, significant, and very troubling revelations about the vulnerabilities of our elections that the president is about to unveil on the American public.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just as a recap, this is the idea. This is the notion. Everybody's talking about it. President Trump is on the cusp of releasing proof and evidence to the American people very soon that will then create such an uproar. Wait a minute. We actually are looking at proof that our elections have been tampered with or fraudulent, foreign interference, illegal aliens voting. There will then be so much pressure on the Senate to pass the Save America Act that we're going to push this thing across the finish line. President Trump has this entire situation gamed out. And of course, this comes at a time when just about a month ago, Maduro was apprehended. And Maduro, we all know, was involved in this election rigging Smartmatic software. Trump didn't drop a bomb on his head. Trump could have blown up Maduro down in Venezuela. He didn't. He brought him back alive. He sent in the Delta Force to bring Maduro back to the U.S. alive. What do you think the odds are that Maduro's been singing like a songbird here, singing like a canary, that he's perhaps working with the Trump administration, providing proof and evidence that all of this did in fact happen, hopefully on his part to try to reach some plea deal, some plea arrangement? I would bet a lot of money on that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's not all President Trump posted on Truth Social yesterday. Like I said, Trump has been whipping up a firestorm here. Trump posted this on Truth Social yesterday as well. Says, in the 2020 election, states using Dominion voting machines allegedly switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden and deleted 2.7 million Trump votes, including 1 million in Pennsylvania alone. Trump himself is posting this on Truth Social last night. Why do you think Trump himself might be posting this? Do you think Trump knows something that all of us don't know yet, but that we're going to end up knowing soon? I would bet so. The mainstream media, Dominion, and many other Democrats lied about voting machines having no internet access. ES&S uses over 14,000 modems across the country, with 35 still found transmitting signals in 11 states post-2020 election. These machines were compromised and were designed to steal elections. Maybe Trump knows something that we don't know yet, but that we might know soon. Trump then, on Truth Social last night, went on to post this. People that doubted will soon see. With an image that says, I will be the one to shut it down. President Trump, late last night, early this morning, posted this as well. I will be the one to shut it down. Curious and curiouser. Then I couldn't help but notice this. We have a post here on Twitter, and this all ties together. So bear with me here, ladies and gentlemen. We have a post here on Twitter from an individual who goes by the name of Tony Saruga. Now, Tony Saruga is a former CIA and NSA contractor / whistleblower. He posted this earlier this afternoon. He said, soon, the FBI will reveal election fraud investigation in Maricopa County, Arizona, with allegations that the Murdochs and Fox News were complicit. Excuse me? That the Murdochs and Fox News were complicit in election fraud in Maricopa County in Arizona. Okay, this is where things just get wild. But then you can't help but notice this. Ladies and gentlemen, Vice President J.D. Vance made an appearance on Fox News himself earlier this morning. J.D. Vance on Fox News this morning said something very curious, and it relates to this. Listen up.
I want to just put up a poll. This shows congressional vote preference. This was at the end of January, so just a few weeks ago. Of all voters, Democratic candidate preference at 52, GOP candidate at 46. We've got a long way to go, but obviously that number would not be good for the majority.
That would not be good. I will say, as much as we love Fox News, we always think Fox News has the worst polling. Me and the president agree on that. I'm sorry.
I
it's
can show
true.
you other ones that are very similar, but since they're ours, I show ours.
But
curious timing here. Vice President J.D. Vance goes on Fox News, said, listen, yeah, both I and the president, we don't really trust you guys. Frankly, we think you've got bad numbers, bad polling. We don't really trust you guys. Honestly, you can't help but notice the timing as all of this is kind of unfolding, because keep in mind, is it possible, if this narrative is correct, J.D. Vance knows that the FBI has evidence that not Fulton County, but in Maricopa County, Arizona, there was election interference and Fox News was in on it. And then today he goes on and says, listen, yeah, we kind of don't really trust you guys. Very, very curious. Now, something to keep in mind here, ladies and gentlemen. What is taking place 6 days from now on February 24th? Today's February 18th. Trump's State of the Union address happens once a year when he addresses the entire nation, is scheduled for February 24th, 6 days from now, less than 1 week from now. Personally, this is just me speaking here. I can't think of a better time, a better place, a better venue to drop this type of news, to bring out all of the receipts and to expose all of the Democrats' subversive anti-American behavior than this right here, State of the Union address scheduled for 6 days from now. Word on the block is that all of this is getting exposed in less than a week. That's the rumor at the moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a very eventful week. It's going to be a very eventful month. It is going to be a very eventful year as we head towards midterms. Of course, we are going to be tuning in together as a community, the Morse Force. We're going to be here live on YouTube and Rumble watching the State of the Union address together. So make sure to follow, subscribe, come back. We're going to be tuning in together, breaking it all down. But ladies and gentlemen, if Trump exposes all of this at the State of the Union, and then that is used, that evidence, that proof is used as leverage to push the Save America Act across the finish line through the Senate, well, as far as I'm concerned, that is what it looks like to finally put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in today's broadcast, what I think we should go ahead and do is take a look at our super chats. This has been one action-packed day. Thank you all for being here. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I told you it's going to be one big show today. Let me go ahead and pull up our super chats here, folks, and Rumble rants, and we're going to get right down to business. Perhaps on this day, more than ever, I want to know what you folks have to say. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about 2020 election fraud. It's maybe a controversial day. I want to see what you guys have to say about this. Okay, I'm pulling them up. I'm pulling the super chats up. And ladies and gentlemen, I've got them. Here we go. Okay, so where did we leave off? Because we did a couple of these, did a couple of these earlier on in today's show, but man, we have a lot of them still. Okay, we are picking up right here with Kevin Stankiewicz. My man Kevin Stankiewicz says conservative MAGA Republicans who flee Democrat states should move to swing states. Oh, maybe there's an idea. You know, hey, people move where they want. People move where they want. But yeah, maybe there's an idea. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Kevin. The 10 Goat, he said, Matt, hello from the great red state of Tennessee. Just wanted you to know that my wife thinks your podcast is the best of the ones I watch. There's no swearing. Keep up the good work. You know, there is minimal swearing. I need to be, oh my. What am I doing? What am I thinking? Where has my brain go? Pause the show. Pause the show. Wait a minute. Okay, here we go. There we go. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you very much. Okay, where's my headset? There it is. Okay, no, we're good. Okay. There is minimal swearing, but I really try to not swear. But listen, you know, it is a flaw. It's a personal flaw. It's something I work on. I'm a millennial. Keep in mind, I am a millennial. You know how millennials like to swear and curse nonstop. I'm trying to get better. I'm in rehab. I used to swear a lot. Now I don't do it so much, but sometimes I relapse a little bit. Sometimes I can't help but do it. I'm trying to get better, okay? Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, that's a big compliment. Thank you very much. We have a super chat here from Curtis. My man Curtis, thank you, sir. He says, I hope these Supreme Court petitions succeed, especially single-day voting. Could you imagine, sir, if we had single-day voting, if we had voter ID laws, but also proof of citizenship laws when you're registering to vote? Massive. I hope so. Thank you very much. We got to get it done. We need to get it done. Maga 26 says, did you know if it has an apple, it also has a banana? I don't know what that means, but hey, maybe so. Thank you very much. Apples and bananas. Opals and bananas. Greg Beaudry, he says, thank you, sir. Red means recording videos op. Huh? Okay, listen, sir, I have no idea what you're talking about. I appreciate that super chat, but I have no clue what you're talking about. Thank you, sir. Dana M says, you're a beautiful woman, Matricia. Matricia. Yeah, there's my name. There's my new name. Matricia. I need to go to the DMV and change my sex there. I need to have a sex change, a government issued sex change. Hey, thank you, Dana. Super chat from Zion War says, you're a beautiful woman, Matricia. Yeah, there's my name. I guess that's what it is. Matt's a Barbie girl from Idaho. Yep. Legally, I am a woman right now. It's true. Presto says, encouraging to hear our government talking about banning stock trading in the government. It will be interesting to see how they enforce something as easy as tipping off family members. You know what? I was thinking about this whole stock trading thing. President Trump is talking about shutting it down. We're going into midterms. You know what I would do if I were Trump? I would do it by executive order. I would sign an executive order. I would say right now, executive order, you know, every single senator and congressman, you've got 30 days, liquidate your stocks, no more stock trading, it's done. And then I would see what happens, because what that does, it puts the Democrats in a situation where they either have to shut up and keep their mouth shut about it, or they have to argue back and say, no. Here's why, you know, Congress members should be able to trade stocks. That would put the Democrats in a very difficult position. Or, God forbid, we have a Democrat president in 2028 or 2032. And then whatever Democrat president in the future, they would have to come out there and overturn Trump's stock trading congressional ban via executive order. They'd have to overturn it. It would be a bad look. It would put the Democrats in a losing position. I think you should do it that way and just kind of see what happens, see what the response is. Executive order. Let me see here. Presto, he says, encouraging to hear our government talking about, okay, that's the one we saw. Thank you, Presto. Rocks and Cows says, Democrats and idiots will say the statistics are AI. Thank you, Rocks and Cows. Texas A&M says, this is a massive super chat, by the way. Thank you very much. Getting a birth certificate is not difficult or expensive. I lost mine when I was born in Korea. My dad was in military, but got it no problem. Passport, very easy to get too. They just do not want people to go do it. Also, I'm a woman. There you go. Also, it's a woman. She's a woman. Hey, me too. These days, me too. No, thank you very much. No, I'm in a similar case. I was born in Japan. It's not hard. It's not hard. You call the consulate. If you're born overseas, you call the consulate to ship it over. It's not a big deal. It really is not that complex. So you've done it. I've done it. Some of us have done it. In the U.S., it's even easier. If you're born in the U.S., it's even easier. It's not difficult. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. N-Style JP says, do you have any interest in the U.S. military aircraft? Well, I think we just talked about a lot of that. You're probably talking about Iran. I think we talked a lot about that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Tina Valco, thank you very much for that. You know, I'm just thinking back to End Style. Yeah, I think maybe you're asking if like I think airplanes are cool. Airplanes are cool. U.S. military aircraft are cool, I guess. Yeah, that's cool. So yes, cool. Anyway, Tina Valco, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We recently went to the airplane museum outside of Seattle. They have a big old, it's the Boeing headquarters, the Boeing Airplane Museum outside of Seattle. It's badass, totally cool. Sorry, it's I'm not allowed to swear. I'm trying not to swear. It's totally awesome. It's totally awesome is what I meant to say. Sometimes it slips out. Thank you very much. Super chat from Curtis. Again, another one. Curtis says, Carolyn Leavitt is the best press secretary ever. Well, her and Kayleigh McEnany. You think she's better than Karine Jean-Pierre, Karine? She looked like a little troll doll. I am so happy. Can I be rude here for a minute? Man, I am so happy that I never have to look at Karine Jean-Pierre's gross, disfigured little munchkin face ever again. She would get up there with her stupid hair and her little munchkin face. I can't even do it. Whatever she looked like, thank God I am never forced to look at her stupid munchkin gross face ever again. Get her out of here. Get her out of here. Thank God she is gone. Anyway, sorry, that was rude. I'm being super rude. Sorry, but come on, really? Seriously. I actually have a conspiracy that the Biden administration strategically picked the ugliest person in the country to be the press secretary just to humiliate us, just to force all of us conservatives to look at her ugly, stupid face. I think there was a psyop. I think they said, all right, we have identified the ugliest woman in the country. All right, put her up there. And everybody's going to have to look at her twice a week for the next 4 years. That was part of their evil plan. Well, I guess she was only there for 2 years. But anyway, no, that's my personal conspiracy, okay? Seriously. Thank you, Curtis. Texas A&M, ma'am, says, Fox News, Democrats, DHS shutdown halts ICE oversight they demanded. How funny. Backfire. Classic Democrat backfire. It's all virtue signaling. Another one from Texas A&M, ma'am, says, aliens are not real, but illegal aliens are. That's true. Can I say something? Listen, on my broadcast here, we don't really talk about conspiracies. I try to keep everything on the straight and narrow here. We don't really talk about conspiracies. Personally, I do have a lot of conspiracy theories. Like on a personal level, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. I'm like, oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah, all in, baby. But I just don't really talk about them publicly. Maybe one of these days, we can have like a conspiracy broadcast where it is no news, only conspiracies. Maybe we can do that for one day. I don't know. Maybe someday, but I'll tell you something here. What was I saying? I forgot what we were talking about. Oh yeah, aliens. That's right, aliens. I kind of just don't really care about aliens. There are a lot of conspiracies I latch onto. I think they're cool. I think they're interesting, but I've never been an alien guy. I'm not an alien guy. I really just do not care about aliens or UFOs or what. It's never been my thing. Thank you very much. Aliens, I sleep. I'm bored. I'm bored of the aliens. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. We have a super chat here from Mark Mason. He's one of the loyalists, one of the Morse Force loyalists. Thank you, sir. He says, Matt, I have called and emailed every senator that I can, but I've still have heard nothing in return. What's the next thing to try? Honestly, if we are calling senators, and we have, a lot of us have been, they are not going to answer the phone. Probably they're not even going to listen to the voicemail. Sort of the agenda is, the strategy is to leave as many. They're going to check that voicemail machine. Whoa, I've got 10,000 voicemails. People must be pissed off. Are they going to listen to all of them? No. Are they going to pick up the phone? Is John Thune going to pick up the phone and answer and hear you out? No. 0% chance of that happening, of either of those things happening. What they are going to see is, wow, I've got 27,000 voicemails And maybe they can see, okay, it's about the Save America Act. People must be pissed. They say, normally I only have 100 people call per day. Now I'm having 10,000 people call per day. Okay. Kind of light a fire under their butt, light a fire under the behind. So that's the approach. But no, they're not going to answer. Beyond that, I think at the moment, that's all we can do is call them, leave voicemails. It's a vibe check. That's right. It's a vibe check. To use some millennial lingo, it is a vibe check. All these mass calls we're doing here. Beyond that, hey, if they don't pass it, then a lot of these people are going to have to be primaried. We got to vote them out and replace them with Republicans that are willing to go for bat for the American people. As far as I'm concerned, you don't get to call yourself a Republican and then refuse to step up to the plate and help save the Republic. If you want to be called a Republican, save the Republic. If you refuse to do that, and that's what this is, Save America Act, save the Republic. If they can't even do that, primary. Hey, there's always an election around the corner. Primary. Gregory Goslin, thank you very much, sir. He says, Matt, I 100% agree on mass deportations. Also, me and my wife are getting back more from taxes from both state and federal this year than in all 4 years of when Biden was president. I believe it. I believe it. Because I think you're posting in response to my little Facebook story from earlier. I believe it. Seems like everybody's getting more back this year. I need to file here in the next couple weeks. I'm slowly working on it. I'm getting all my itemized deductions. All of these cough drops that I'm eating, that I'm slurping on live broadcasts. Can I deduct Ricola cough drops? I need them for work. I need them for work. I'm a live broadcaster. I'm going to deduct these Ricola cough drops. I think that makes sense. I have to do it. Anyway, no, thank you. Yeah, I believe it though. Respond, he says, I am late for the #1 news show, The Morse Report. Thanks for bringing us all of the top news. Respond, I appreciate it. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. It's okay. You know, we were live early today because we were doing the press conference. So I will forgive you just this once. I will forgive you, sir. I'll forgive you. Muscle Gamers today says, great show as always. Thank you, Muscle Gamers. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And you know, I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, over here up on YouTube, we got one more super chat from Greg Astrino. He says, although the 2020 election was stolen, it was a good thing because it gave Trump time to plan. I'll tell you something here. Let's talk alternate timeline. Let's say the 2020 election had not been stolen. Let's say Trump had remained in the White House. It is totally possible that Trump's second term would have kind of been a lame duck term. He had a bunch of rhinos in Congress that wouldn't let him do anything. Wouldn't have gotten a lot done. However, by nature of Joe Biden stepping into the White House, I think on one level, it kind of radicalized a lot of us Americans. We saw, oh, so this is what it's like when a Democrat is in the White House. Things are terrible. The economy implodes. We've got 25 million illegal aliens. There's fentanyl flooding into the country. Kids are going missing left and right. Human trafficking, sex trafficking, all types of terrible stuff. Yeah, it showed the American people just how bad things really are under Democrat leadership. And also during that time frame, like you said, that 4-year Obama era, one, Trump was pissed. Trump was pissed. He was livid, rightfully so. And he took that anger, because he knew he was robbed. He knew it was stolen from him. He took that energy, righteous indignation is what we're going to call it. And he built a team. He built a coalition. He put together a plan. He said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm coming back stronger than ever. And that's what we have seen. Trump, no offense here, in the last 12 months has gotten more done in the last 12 months than he got done in the first 4 years last time around. 1 year, last 12 months, he's gotten more done than 4 years in his first term. Trump is back, pedal to the metal, pedal to the metal. I think, you know, sometimes you need to get punched in the face, fall down. You need to get roughed up, fall down so you can get back up stronger than ever. You get back up, you're stronger than ever. You get back on the horse. Sometimes you need to get kicked off the horse so you can get back on the horse. You kind of learn the ropes here. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what happened here. A lot of the rhinos have been replaced in the Senate and in the House. Now we got a better, not perfect, but a better Republican lineup here in Congress. Hey, God's plan. God's plan. Literally, though, God's plan. That's what you have to call it. Super chat here from, this is ND Hair Angel, says, female Gen X, big fan. Thank you very much. Can I tell you something here? Thank you very much, ma'am. Can I tell you something? I'll check my analytics on the back end. I can see what country people are from. You guys, I can see where are the viewers from? What's the gender? What's the sex? Okay, 92% Americans, 3-4-5% Canadians, 1% South Africans, less than 1% various Europeans. What about the sex breakup? Men, women. Right now, it is about, I kid you not, you're not going to believe this, 60% men, 40% women. Listen, all you women in the audience, you are in good company. Almost half of the Morse force is women. It's true. So, hey, welcome to the show. We will tolerate the female presence. I think we can tolerate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Super chat from Greg. Greg Birdie said, Rhett, actually, I saw that. Hold up. We already got that one. Wait a minute. Clank says, could you imagine Pence running for president in 2024? It was real bad, but a blessing we have Trump back now with Vance up next. Yeah, Pence. The betrayer. Pence, the betrayer. Thank God he's not relevant. Although rumor is he's going to try to mount a campaign here in 2028. That's the word on the block. Thank you very much. True. And then, okay, final Rumble rant of the day, and then we got to wrap it up. Take this one here. It says, the problem is, this is from Joel's Patriot. The problem is progressives were trained to run as Republicans, so everyone must investigate all new candidate to running in Texas and Florida. There you have it. That is a problem. In fact, you know what? I see a comment here. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. There's this, look at this guy. Look at this guy here. Individually says, Matt Morse is a liberal shill posing as a conservative. Can I tell you something? Can I be a little bit honest? Can I be totally honest with you folks? On my broadcasts, I do have to kind of watch what I say. Maybe you could even say on my broadcasts, I have to even put on a little bit of a mask. Why? What do I mean by that? I am very far to the right. I am, admittedly, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a progressive posing as a conservative. I am a right-wing radical posing as a conservative. I am a very far-right radical posing as a conservative, not a progressive. I am very far to the right. And then we go live on the broadcast really because of all the rules on YouTube and this and that. You need to remain civil. I do kind of have to tone it down. Have you noticed? Can I ask you a question? Have you kind of noticed that that's the case, that I am a little bit further to the right than maybe I can publicly be sometimes? It is true. I think some of you have noticed a little bit. I am very far to the right. Great. Okay, we all on this. Is everybody on the same page here? Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, that is going to be a wrap up for today's broadcast. We've been live, I don't even know what, a little bit over 2 hours. Thank you all very much for being here for today's show. There is a chance we will be back this evening, depending on if there's news to talk about. Until then, I'll have some videos for you. Thank you all. Hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Join the Morse Force. Join the community on Rumble as well as on YouTube. Thank you all very much. God bless. Until I see you next, stay safe. And once again, thank you very much.